Good morning and welcome to Algebra 1 Academic. Today we're going to review really quickly the differences between a relation and a function. I told you last week that a relation is any coordinate or collection of coordinates or graph or table of values, pretty much anything that relates x and y variables. So, relations can be seen as individual coordinates or a table of values that are coordinates or a graph of individual points or the graph of a line or a curve or even a mapping which shows all the x values in one bubble and all the y values in one bubble and arrows that connect them. So let's play a game. Is it a function? On the board behind me, I have a bunch of options for all the various types of ways you can see relations. And you want to tell me if each one is a function. Now, again, here's the rule. A function is any relation in which every x has only one y. We say every input, which are the x values, have only one output, which are the y values. So take a look at the board. What do we got here? Well, first thing we have our graphs. So take a look at the graphs, and I want you to tell me which one's the function, if any of them. Is this graph a function, or is this graph a function? Are they both functions? Are neither one functions? How can we tell? Well, remember that every x can only have one y. Now what that looks like on a graph is that any place you point to the graph itself, right here, let's say, for the x value I'm looking at, is there only one y value? We said there's a little test called a vertical line test. That means if you could draw a vertical line straight up and down, and they were on the graph, and it only touches the graph once each time, that's a function. So on this one, if I draw a vertical line here, it touched one time, there, 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 or there. Anytime I draw a vertical line on that graph, it's only touching the graph one time. So this is a function. Look at the one below it. What do you think? Is this going to be a function or not? Let's do the same thing. Vertical line test. So vertical line touches once and once, and once there too. But over here, there are 1, 2, 3 points of intersection. It's not a function. Because for that x value, whatever that x value is, let's say it's x is -4 or whatever, there's 1, 2, 3 different outputs. So any graph where it crosses over itself vertically, not a function. All right, let's look at the table of values. We have inputs of 0, 1, 2, and 3, and outputs of 4, 6, 6, and 7. So a 1 gets a 4, a 0 gets a 4, a 1 gets a 6, a 2 gets a 6, and a 3 gets a 7. Is it a function or is it not a function? Well, there are 2 y values that are repeating, but that's okay. Here's the deal. Every x has only one y. It's okay if they share y's. It's just that they can't have more than one. So if I plug in a 0, I get out a 4. There's only one solution. If I plug in a 1, I get out a 6. There's only one solution. Plugging in a 2 gets a 6 also. Still one solution for the 2. 3 gets a 7. That is a function. A list of coordinates is another way to look at a possible function. Certainly a relation is a set of coordinates. Now I listed them here for you. Now that's the point 0, 2, 5, 8, 6, 8, 6, 3, 8, 1. Question is it a function? If every input, every x, has only one y, only one output, it's a function. So a 0 gets a 2, a 5 gets an 8, a 6 gets an 8. We said it's okay if they both get an 8 because a 5 is only getting one solution of 8, and a 6 so far is only getting one solution of 8 also. However, this coordinate shows you an input of 6, but an output of 3. What that's showing you is that an input of 6 has 2 different outputs, 2 different answers. It's not a function. It's a relation, but it's not a function. Okay, a mapping shows you what you're looking at right there. 2 big bubbles, and the inputs, the x values, are in one bubble. The outputs, the y values, are in the other bubble. And you can see by arrows what the input will lead to. So a 2 has an output of 5, a 3 has an output of 5. We said it's okay if they share outputs, that's no problem. And a 4 has an output of 6. Every input has only one output, that's a function. Only one arrow leaves every input, so that's perfectly fine. This mapping shows you that a 2 gets an output of a 1, and a 7 gets a 2. A 9 gets a 2, and also a 9 gets a 4. That's a problem. There are 2 arrows that are leading away from the 9. That means the 9 has 2 different outputs. This is a problem. It's not a function. Those are pretty much the 4 different ways we can see whether a relation is a function. We also mentioned in class that equations are essentially relations because they relate x and y. And that so far as we're concerned right now, almost every equation that you're going to deal with is also a function because there's only one answer when you plug in a number for x. There's only one solution. So therefore, it shows you that it is a function when you're looking at an equation. Okay. Hopefully you did okay with our game of Is It a Function? So, one more little bit of vocabulary before we go on to what is our, essentially our homework. And that's the vocabulary of domain and range. So, it's not hard to do. It's not hard to understand. The domain of a relation or function is the set of all x values. And of course, x values, we should know at this point, are also called inputs. And the range is the set of all y values, also called the outputs. Okay, so the domain of a function or a relation is just every x value within that function or relation. The range is the set of all outputs, all the y values. So if you had to list them, you would just list the values with a comma in between each value. For instance, I'm going to give you, let's say, a graph. I'll try to make it simple enough. So I'm going to show you some coordinates, okay? And here we go. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coordinates I put on the graph. Let's list the coordinates if you'd like. So this first coordinate is -2, 1. So -2, 1. This is -1, -1. This one is 0, -1. This coordinate is 1, 1. This coordinate is 2, 1. And this coordinate is 3, 3. So I took the graph and I listed the coordinates. Now we're looking at this relation in 2 different ways. One as a graph, one as a list of coordinates. I want to list the domain. So the domain is just the set of all the x values. We're going to use this little squiggly bracket, and we're going to list all the domain values one at a time. But if the domain ever repeats itself, we won't list it twice. Same thing with the range. If there's more than one of the same value, we won't list it twice. So usually we go from least to greatest. Now, when I just named all the coordinates, I did start with the lowest x. So -2 is the first domain, then -1, then 0, then 1, 2, and 3. We don't say -2 through 3 or -2 - 3 because there's a lot of numbers fractions and decimals that are not actually identified right there on the graph. You're just going to list each one, okay? We'll do the same thing for the range. But again, we're going to go least to greatest, so the lowest number to the biggest number. Now, that's the y numbers we care about now. These are the y's. Looks like -1 is the lowest one. Now, you can see that -1 happens twice, but I'm not going to write it down twice because we're just writing down all the values in the range, not the number of times they occur. So -1 is the first one. Now, 1 happens 1, 2, 3 times, but I'm only going to write it once because, again, we're just listing the numbers within the range. And then there's a 3. So the domain has 6 distinct values within it, and the range only has 3. That's fine, because we don't list repeaters. Okay. We've done enough now that we can do the homework. Now, attached to the classroom announcement is a document that is a worksheet, technically 3 sides. I do want you to work on that, and I do want you to complete that. It is due on Wednesday, so you have more than one day. You've got 2 full days to do it. Tomorrow, there's no technical school. I still want you to do the worksheets and do the work so that we're done with it. It's not difficult. It's basically, is it a function? And there's 3 pages. One of, is it a function from a graph? Is it a function from a table? Is it a function from a list of coordinates? That's basically all it is. Maybe mapping also. So do the 3 worksheets. Basically, the answer is yes or no each time. It does ask sometimes for a reason. And you might want to say because every input has only one output. Or if the answer is no, well, the number 2 has more than one output. If it asks you to list the domain or the range, now you know how. Let me know if you have any questions. Send me an email. Otherwise, have a great day, and I will see you guys soon. This is due on Wednesday. Submit it to me. Email to me. Wednesday morning. Have a great day.